Hi everyone, welcome to this series. My name is G and I'm super excited about our guest today. Welcome to this series first of all, and I'm also joined by my co-host Chant. Chant, how you doing?
Good, man. How are you doing today?
Good, I'm excited for this one today. It's going to be a
Totally.
good one.
It'll be good.
So today we're going to be talking with an amazing person who we've been speaking to for a couple of weeks and is a great friend of Avid as well, Eddie El Brujo Caipo. How you doing, Eddie?
How are you guys? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for
Thanks for being
joining
here.
us. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Eddie, look, you've done some amazing stuff before. I looked into your bio and your website and everything, and it was like there's so many big names screaming out there. Today, we're going to kind of explore your role with some of these names as well. But just to mention, it's Gwen Stefani, Enrique Iglesias, Christina Aguilera. There's so many big names there, like massive, massive names. You've also done some performances at the Latin Grammys as well, right?
Well, yeah, with Enrique, we done the Latin Grammys and some award shows, Billboard Awards and the Premios Lo Nuestro and just a bunch of different award shows, MTV Awards in
Yeah.
Europe. So I've been fortunate to do award shows through the artists that I work with, not necessarily directly with, the networks or anything like that. But because of
Yeah.
the artists I work with, mostly with Enrique, to be honest, we'll be able to do some award show, which is kind of cool. The way they work is completely. The whole TV
Yeah.
world is a whole other thing,
Yeah, no, I can imagine. And Eddie, just to touch on, I'm going to ask you a question about your background stuff, but just I know you're a monitor engineer as well. That's kind of your main role, but you also do a lot of other stuff outside of just monitors, right? A lot of
Yeah,
studio work.
yeah. For the longest time, I was actually a front of house engineer and studio mixing engineer. That's what I've always done, really. Uh, and then at some point, the opportunities started to come. I mean, I've done monitors briefly, back in the time when it was wedges still. But at some point, the jobs that were available were monitors,
Yeah,
and all of a sudden, we're mixing in ears, and because of my front of house background, studio background, I was able to sort of deliver a different type of in-ear mix, which was a little more musical, if you will. And people started liking it. Then before you know it, now I don't get any calls from front of house, and I don't get but I continue to do studio work. So as you can see, I'm in my studio home.
yeah,
So that helps, I think, because especially now with all the tools that we have, we're able to really deliver uh, those very specific mixes that artists like now, and they're able to tell you, hey, I like to use this, API compressor on my voice. Can you put that in my in-ears? I'm like, absolutely. So it's pretty cool,
uh,
and I stayed now mixing that, and I'm in monitors all the time now, and it's fun because you
wow.
get to interact with the artists.
So how long
I
you
was
been
going to
doing
say,
monitors specific? I'm sorry, G. How long you been doing monitors specifically?
I will say monitors only probably since 2010 or 11.
Okay. Yeah.
I guess the
Been a
big
while.
one that I was full time monitors would have been maybe Tear for Fears. Actually, no, I started before that with Smash Mouth. I did a long stint with them doing monitors, but then the opportunity came to do front of house, and I moved to front of house, and I loved it. It was great. Um, but then I guess Tear for Fears was the one where it was officially from that point forward. It was just I've been doing nothing but monitors, and that was fun. I'm a as probably you guys are too, a huge fan of Tear for Fears, and I'm an '80s kid, so getting all those '80s sounds and gated reverbs and a lot of slap delays and mid delays and choruses and flanges and all those things that we get to play with on when you're mixing the '80s music.
Sure.
So that was a lot of fun.
that's awesome. That's awesome, Eddie. I want to actually go back a little bit and ask a question about how you actually first got into music overall. Like, what was your background? Tell me a little bit maybe about your DAW journey as well, like how that was, or what you started on, and stuff like that.
Well, my background. Well, I'm an older guy, so it will take a long time. But I'll tell you a little bit. I've been very fortunate. I always say this in other discussions where I come from a family of musicians. My grandma was a musician, and my dad. Everybody on my dad's side of the family. My dad is a keyboard player, accordion player, and my brother, my cousins, everybody basically is in music. My brother's a producer, my other cousin's a producer, bass player, my older brother's a bass player. Literally everybody, uh, and I was around it all the time. My parents own the only. I grew up in Peru, so my parents owned the only Mexican restaurant in Peru that had shows every night, you know, and of course, in the weekends as well, which is when I will go in and do stuff. So since I was like 13, 14, I would start like mixing things and like, or even younger, start mixing things at the restaurant because it was a variety sort of show. It was like 5 different artists per night, all styles of music kind of thing. And I will get my hands dirty with that, just get really busy learning that. And my dad has some studio equipment at home and I will record his stuff and just little by little start doing things, I will also do stuff for school where I will be, I will bring in my dad's gear and kind of like, okay, now we have a PA, we can run the performance in a better way. Anytime he will have a gig outside the restaurant, I will always help him with that. But eventually I became the person running the sound at the restaurant at a very young age. And then of course my brother, as he started playing gigs and stuff, well then I started becoming his sound engineer, front of house engineer. And I was just always around it. But I also realized that there were moments where, just because I was doing it, I didn't really quite know what I was doing in a way. And we didn't have a lot of access. And back then we didn't have what we have now where we're like, collaborating like we're doing right now online or YouTube or whatever it is. We didn't have that. So every time we would take a trip to the US, I would always buy books that were being used either for schools, audio schools or whatever, just buy them and take them with me, and just read through them and learn and try to keep up with the theory of it, I guess. And I just kept doing that. Eventually I moved back to the States. And I, in pursuit of that, I always knew I want to be a mixing engineer. This is what I want to do. And I've always done, like I said, always both parallel, live and studio work, always together. And I've always found a way to sort of, merge them or do a hybrid of it. I never felt like, oh, this is just live, this is just studio. They don't complement each other in any way. I always, in my mind, I always feel like they do. There's aspects of it that they always are. It's the same. You're dealing with artists and you're dealing with, the good and the bad of the artists or insecurities or deficiencies or things that you have to, whatever, help them out sonically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So all those things come in play, whether you're in the studio or live. So that's kind of how I started it. And I just kept moving along and trying to, I've done everything from jingles, in LA, just in pursuit of just being able to do this full time in audio or studio work,
Yeah.
So it was cool because I was surrounded by it.
So what time did you make the transition into the studio side of things? It sounds like you started in the live production and then you kind of got into studio later on. How did those worlds merge and what was the precursor to that?
Yeah, I think the full merger would have started when I was doing jingles, which I kind of started briefly before I moved to the States. So I started in Peru a little bit. And then once I moved to LA, there was actually a jingle house owned by this Peruvian guy who was very talented, and he had a great facility. And so I started doing jingles there. And by doing that stuff, of course, doing voiceovers and producing the jingles and mixing them and everything, I was already sort of in that studio environment full time, right? So I just kept doing that. And then, at nights I would start doing live sound. And then I eventually moved to I'm all over the place, but eventually I moved to the Bay Area. And I just, because of my brother who was already living in the Bay Area, he had gigs and things. So I started getting live gigs at clubs. Before you know it, those people in clubs are like, hey, we want to record this. Do you do that too? I was like, yeah, I can do that. And then I will go rent a studio, and then I'll rent a studio. And then people in the studio will be like, hey, we're looking for, someone to kind of run our studio or kind of take care of. There was a mid-sized studio I was working at in San Francisco called DCP. We eventually became a really good friend with the owner. And basically I was there so much that I ended up just running the place. And because all my clients were there,
Wow.
And all these clients are, keep in mind, they're all indie artists and local artists, but a lot of them were amazing, just sadly artists you will never hear of, but they were incredible. And I will do all genres too. I'll be like, metal to punk, jazz, funk, Latin, R&B. I mean, you name it. Everything will go through the studio. I did hip hop for a while too, and then so I was able to kind of be around it all. And I always wanted to be a mixer that could do all genres. I kind of don't feel like we should be kind of pigeonholed into one genre. I mean, do people specialize in a particular genre? Of course, that does happen. There's certain people that are better at certain things than others, or connect with a particular style of music. But I think having the fortune of being around all styles of music helped develop my ear in certain ways. I could be mixing a rock album, then all of a sudden they go, "Hey, we added these horns to this thing." I was like, "No problem," Or we want to add some percussion. You think that's good or bad? Like, add the percussion. Let's do it. I mean, if it fits, why not? Have you ever recorded percussion? Yeah, yes, I have. Like things like that, right? Where you don't set limits to yourself. It allowed me, I think, having all these experiences from jingles to, voiceovers to mixing any style of music or recording any style of music, I think prepared me to do everything that I do today, even,
Yeah.
It's almost like nothing scares you anymore. Hey, you want to do this? Oh, we're going to add a string section. You ever mic'd up? Yeah, let's clamp on some mics on them or whatever. Let's get, I don't overthink it. And if I don't know something, I have no problem asking for help. Hey, I haven't done this one thing. Can I check in with a friend of mine. Hey, you've done this. What was your experience with this? Or what do you think my approach should be? And then I'll still make my own, making my own at the end of it. But having that knowledge and having access to people you can ask is always good.
For sure. Eddie, do you on that note, do you play any instruments? I feel like you may play some instruments.
I'm a frustrated drummer. My brother's a drummer. My brother's a drummer, and I think that's where the connection is. And then my best friend is a drummer, and a lot of great friends that I have around me are drummers. I can play drums enough to fix them. I can play keyboards enough to fix them, record MIDI and then fix notes and whatever. A little bit of guitar, but just to understand how they do it.
Yeah,
that's really what it comes down to. Not because of anything in particular where I'm gonna lay down these keyboards and that's what's gonna stay on the album. I usually do it just enough to as a demo or to get us sorted out. On this part, I'm kind of hearing a B3, so let me just play an organ there and whatever, and then we'll hire a real B3 player to do this. That kind of stuff. I'm not. I used to perform in a band. I used to be in a band for many years. It was a rock band in the era of the rock and Spanish stuff in the 90s and 2000s. And it was a lot of fun. But I always ended up like going to the board and mixing our sound and then going on stage and getting ready. And like sound has always been my passion. That was always been my instrument. So I kind of I made the right call, I guess, to get off the stage kind of thing.
Yeah. And also just going back actually a little bit, which I love, is like, talking about your family restaurant and stuff and just how food and music goes together. I always tell people like food and music is just like live music and food. It's just, it complements so well.
I mean, it's helped me maintain this thing. You know what I'm saying? This doesn't happen by accident.
It takes work.
No, you're right. You're right. It's what brings people together. A gathering. Like my wife is an incredible singer-songwriter as well. Mm-hmm. And, every time we have a family gathering or anything, just grab the guitar and all of a sudden it becomes a thing, and I play percussion and like, and then if there are other musicians with us, then, we have a bass here, we have this, and it becomes like a nice gathering, a party, if you will. And it's always, and then there's, of course, there's food, like you said, there's always, it all complements each other, it's all part of the art,
That's it. Love that. So Eddie, I want to just touch base on, so we spoke about kind of your background, but I'd love to touch base now on working with big artists, like let's say Gwen. That was the latest one that you did, right?
I'm currently with her. I just came back from Vegas from doing a show there.
Okay, awesome.
And so I'm currently with her and Enrique, and they're the two that I'm constantly with,
Wow. That's awesome. So with either of them, what's kind of like your day-to-day look like when you're preparing either for like a tour or like a live performance? Like what's your day-to-day? I guess it changes a lot as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, depending on what we're doing, we this year, I think it was in March, we finished the tour that we did with Enrique. It was the trilogy tour. It was Enrique, Ricky Martin, and Pitbull. A very successful tour that was a lot of fun. And of course, I was just mixing Enrique. And then my friends Caesar and Matt were mixing monitors for Pitbull or I should say, Ricky Martin and Pitbull, respectively. And yeah, I mean, the way I prepare, I guess, for a tour is if it was, there's two scenarios for me. Like with Enrique and Gwen, I've been with them for years now. With Enrique, it's over 12 years, and with Gwen, over 8 years now. So with them, to be honest, a lot of the settings haven't changed since I started. Once I got them dialed in those first few weeks, everything's pretty much the same until something gets added on, right? If something gets added on or they added new musicians. Recently, we did a project with Gwen, which is all over YouTube now, where it was, she basically played her new album, and it's entirely live, with her band in the backyard of her house, right? And it turned out really, really, really nice. And we added an extra musician and 2 background singers. So when it comes to something like that, then I can prepare offline, obviously with a offline editor for the S6L, and add those things, be ready. So by the time I get there, it's already done. I can copy my mixes and do things, or build a quick mix for someone before I even get there. But it's all based on something that I already did. I love working with templates or presets that I make myself for being able to be ready, right? We have the technology, why not use it, So for those 2 artists, usually, because I already have a show built, anything that gets added, I usually add it at the end very quickly, and it becomes part of the show. But normally when I start with a new artist, I grab some of those templates that I have or presets, and I literally can build a whole show ready for, I'm going to sound maybe a little too confident, but I could probably roll into a sound check and without ever have worked with that artist, because all these years of using these things and saving these presets, kick drums and snare drum presets or whatever, or channel strip presets or whatever, you don't have to start from zero. It saves you a lot of time. I remember a quick anecdote with when I was going to start with Gwen, they allocated quite a lot of time for me to get the band ready. It was like, okay, well, you're coming in. I came in kind of halfway through the tour. Sadly, they let go of their monitor engineer there. It was the last third of the tour over 8 years ago. And I was just kind of come in after they'd been on the road for a while. So I was like, well, I can't mess this up. I have to be ready, right? So they allocated quite a lot of time for the band, and then a lot of time for her to dial her in-ears with me. Well, because again, I grab all my presets and things, and I know, okay, the drummer's mix, I set that up, bass player's mix, guitar player mix, and I just grabbed it from other shows that I've had. And they were pre-mixed, pre-dialed, pre-everything. And the band shows up and they're like, hey, so what do you want to hear? We already did a line check, of course, with the crew, kick, snare, one at a time. But do you want us to do this again with you? And I was like, one at a time. I was like, who wants kick? And I was like, no, just play a song. He goes, but we haven't done anything yet. It's like, just play. Just start playing, And they start playing, and it was little. They're like, I can see the bass player turning around, like, I can hear myself and I hear everybody and everything sounds good. It was like, what's going on, right? It's almost like, are you using someone's files? Like, no, which is also a thing that I don't do. But then, of course, there were things to fine tune because everybody's different. But basically, we saved a lot of time. We were done with them in less than 15 minutes. 15 minutes with the band, basically, pretty much. And
so
then,
did you use tracks for that, or did you just come in with your presets?
A lot of times I do virtual soundcheck. I will request virtual soundcheck. A lot of times they don't give you anything. For that particular show, at the beginning, I had nothing. I just walked in.
It's amazing.
But basically, I just, a lot of musicians, they like the same things with some slight differences, right? So at least I get in ballpark and then the other changes I can make very quickly, right? And as I'm making the changes, I'm already storing in snapshots that I already have all the songs ready. And at this point, I have everybody, all the snapshots selected. I'm making global changes and then store that. And then I let them know, look, now you guys are good. If you need anything else on a particular song, I want more click on this song, or I don't want any guitar on this song or whatever, then I can make those changes. So we were done so quickly, then all of a sudden, Gwen happened to be in the building, and we said, we're done with the band. She goes, really? So I said, just bring her over. We'll start with her. And they did. I met her and I spoke to her. I said, look, I heard you were having some issues with this, or difficulty with this. I already have a pre-mix done. I have your effects set the way, I've heard, because I start gathering information from wherever I can, things that you like, and let's just build something together really quick. But you should be okay with this to start, and then just let me know, right? Whatever you need. She kind of just says something on the mic, and she goes, oh, wow, this already sounds pretty. She's very, cute when she talks about certain stuff with the audio. And then I'm like, okay, cool. And she goes, let's try a song. She tries a song. I was like, this is great. Cool. This is awesome. Then, we start fine-tuning things. And then she did a couple songs, and she was done. She went back to change, and we did a run-through. Right?
Really?
Which is great for me, because then I could build things per song. But soundcheck, we were done also in minutes. And it wasn't, the reason I say this, and for whoever's watching this at this point, is not to brag. It's more to instill the habit in people of like, why are you starting from zero? There is no reason. And they thought, how were you able to do this so fast? Because the technology is there. It's not because I'm that quick moving knobs. It's because there is no reason. People, like drummers, only hit the drum so hard. So if I already have a preset for a Beta 91 with a 52 on the outside, and it's already done, I already loaded it up there. If this drummer just hits a little softer or a little louder, fine. I'll adjust the gain slightly, but it's already there. I'm within the 80 or 90% range that I'm in the right place, if not perfectly on spot on, because most people will hit around the same way. Same with keyboards or any kind of playback system or whatever. I like to run them all line level. Same with micro. Everything's coming at the right level. And if we have to put a wire, I just remove the pad and boom, now it's mic level. Everything lines up for me. And if you do those things and you follow those procedures, or at least procedures that I'm used to, it saves me a lot of time. So we were way ahead of schedule for that. And we ran through the rehearsal, and it was awesome. And at that point, all I had to do was fine-tune things as we were going along per song, which was very little also, so that was kind of fun, I mean, it has to work also, I lucked out because Gwen is an artist who is very, very nice to deal with, and everybody in the team are also very nice, and nobody was like, oh my God, this is just terrible, you suck. No, it wasn't like that. It was more like very inviting and very respectful and things, but the truth is that she went through a few people before that, and she's not a difficult artist at all. I can say that publicly, not because she's my boss, but it's true. She is not a difficult artist. Some engineers just weren't listening or paying attention. That's all it is, Yeah, and same with Enrique. Same with any other artist that when the first time I started, it was the same. I ask a bunch of information. I ask, of course, their input list, their output list, whatever they have currently. I ask for a set list. If they're able to give me tracks, awesome. If they're not, I'm going to just go in cold, With Enrique, it was a thing where my first show was in India. And I didn't, with gear that I was, all put together there. We didn't travel with anything. And at the time I was on a profile, and he didn't show up for soundcheck. And all I knew was just information that I would get from the MD or band members. I would just ask him, what have you heard that he likes, and this and that or whatever. and there was a sort of a preface to this where in Vegas, weeks prior to that, I got to kind of, be a fly on the wall in one of the rehearsals, but nothing, I wasn't operating or nothing. So that was helpful in the sense of like more than anything seeing the dynamics of the band. It's a 9-piece band. But then once I got to Indy to do my show, I was like, okay. And I was just winging it, right? So I did my thing, and he wasn't there for sound check. The first time I saw him was he walked on stage. And and it went well the first day, and then second and third day there were some things happening, and I had to, correct some things and adjust, and it was a little bit more of a process, but at least my time wasn't spent starting from zero again, because I didn't start from zero.
Yeah.
Same approach. It was the same approach, except that it took me perhaps, I would say, a couple of weeks to really get him to be happy.
Were you using virtual sound check at that point in time?
After I did no, actually no.
No, okay.
I did not use no. But after the first couple of shows, then I was like, okay, band is taken care of. That's good or whatever. I was just focusing on the things that he liked, right? And just getting to learn that. I would say maybe before 2 weeks, but it seemed like a longer time in the sense of like really refining things. But by the end of that run that we did, because it was 3 shows in India, 1 in Turkey, and 1 in Dubai. By the Dubai show, I think I could say, well, okay, I think I'm in. This is good. I'm in. And then after that, from there, we just, it's been over 12 years now, nonstop.
Wow.
Yeah, he's great too, man. He's really easy to work with. I mean, he knows what he wants. He's very direct and goes, "This is what I'm looking for." And once I got it, I was like, I asked him to come to a sound check towards the end of that run in the Middle East. I was like, just come to. I just need 5 minutes. Just give me 5 minutes of your time. It will be great. And we're like, okay. Because I was starting to feel like, oh, he's not liking what I'm doing. This is gonna. This might be the first time I get fired. But just me talking to him about it, and he did show up, and he's like, okay, well, let's check them out. Okay, well, I kind of like it to sound like this. I like to always feel like I'm in an arena, like I'm in an arena no matter where I'm at. I was like, okay, so you like reverb? Well, let me make this a little larger, a little bigger, but whatever. And I like it, I like, a lot of clarity. I don't like bass, and okay, very easy. Writing them up quite a bit, which is pretty standard for singers because of the whole occlusion effect when you're wearing in-ears. But him is a little more pronounced. He likes it very crisp. So I'm like, great. Boom, boom, boom. I added a de-esser so I can crisp him up and not hurt him either.
No.
And he goes, that sounds good. Try the song, boom, that was it. And after that, his settings, I kid you not, are the same from that day all the way till today.
Oh my God,
because
that's
I don't want to change it, because he's happy, and even when I transitioned to the SXL, I brought those settings with me, which was pretty easy, and everything's still the same. Keep him happy. There's been slight differences overall to his mix. He used to like everything just pan to the left, and his vocal obviously middle. I got him now in a full mix, and he's enjoying it. So it took a while, but he's in a full mix now. So
that's awesome, man. No, it's so like refreshing hearing stories like this. I love it. Sharing some gems, Eddie. Sharing some gems.
I'm just yapping, man. I hope I'm not.
I love it. No, I love it, man. I could sit here all day. I want to just circle back, Chant. Maybe you can give just to those who may not know what virtual sound check is. Could you maybe just say what that is, just so we could let people know as well?
Sure. It's the ability to record the inputs in a live environment and repurpose those recordings at a later date to remix the band. And the key is that it's top of channel, so there's no processing involved in it. So when you play it back, it's as close to being the exact same source sound coming from the microphone when the band is on stage playing it. So yeah, it's an incredibly valuable tool. You can go in and fine tune stuff. You can listen to minute details without the rest of the band on stage. Things you can do that you can't do while the drummer's bashing the drums next to the piano and things like that.
Yeah.
Wow. So would you use that as well if like an artist didn't come for sound check or something as well? I guess.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind
Yeah.
of why I asked Eddie that, is
Yeah.
because had he had tracks to play with, even though Enrique didn't show up,
Yeah.
he could at least listen to them in his mix, Enrique's mix, and kind of get a sense of it. But without those
Yeah.
tracks, it's like you're flying blind completely. So
Yeah.
it's you know, as he said,
Awesome.
once he got him on stage and he could work with him, that's where it all the glue, you know, the
Yeah.
glue came together and everything worked out from that point
Oh,
forward.
that's
Well, and
awesome.
one of the things too is because of the virtual soundcheck thing. Like I did with my friend Jim Yakubuski, we did Matchbox 20 last year's tour, and it was incredible. One of the coolest experiences. And I did get tracks for that. He sent me like a recording that he had from pre-pandemic. And here in the studio, I'll open them up, and I literally created some presets with some plugins and things, stored them on the thumb drive, and then, you know, whenever I had access to the console, which was, I went to the sound company and sat there and loaded it up. Of course, I did my offline stuff, which I normally do. I was able to load those settings that I created here, you know, load them up, and then with virtual soundcheck, do playback, and really, like you said, Jan, refining certain things. I could actually loop a particular tom section, and perhaps if it's a very quiet crescendo thing, I do this a lot actually with snapshots where things are running with time code or whatever. I could build snapshots where open up the gauge right when they go, dun, 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 dun. And then right when they're going to hit the cymbal on that one, mutes them again. Yeah. But it's all to the point where it's like precise, where it's not going to sound choked or it's not going to sound, you know, weird or whatever. You can do that with virtual soundcheck without having the drummer. Can you try this real quick? I'm programming something. You don't have
do you
to
mind
do that,
playing
right?
this 20 times in a row for me?
Can you play this 20 times in a row until I find this, you know, or even you know, playing with, you know, anything really, audience mics, programming that, or programming guitar solos where I can stay on Enrique's mix or Gwen's mix or whoever as live as I'm doing stuff, but in the background the solo maybe is going up for the bass player, for the drummer, and then the solo ends and goes back down, and it's I'm not even on their mixes, but it's happening because of time code, you know, like and on a snapshot, and all those things come in play, you know. With Matchbox, I did something also that was like, they have some songs that have like a one of them was called "She's So Mean," I think, where it like has a like, and it has sort of like gated drums, sort of like Phil Collins drum fills, but only on the fills. It doesn't have it on the rest of the parts. So I actually had like a function key that I will just hold down that would enable that sound effect that I have with the gated drums or whatever, and I would just hold it down, and then let go, and I'm keeping my mix going, and then all of a sudden it happens again, and just hold it down, and all those things, I couldn't do it if the band was there, you know. I mean, I could have, but it would be annoying. All they know is that all of a sudden the stuff that happens on the record is happening in their ears, and they don't know at what point, and like, how did you get that to work so quickly? Because when you guys were gone, I stayed an extra, you know, whatever, half hour or whatever hour, programmed that real quick, you know, and dial it in, just left it on loop, dial it, okay. And now when I hold it in, it's going to hold it down, it's going to, boom. It's like a burst, right? So virtual soundcheck is very useful for that, incredibly useful. Whenever I can, I use it. I use it on the stuff that I do every day. I use it to even check the mixes, make sure they're lining up with the in-ears. You know, I don't, you know, I'm the one to like running pink noise to everything. To me, that's annoying. Plus, if someone's listening, it's like, what if it bursts or sounds bad or whatever. So I just run a song from virtual soundcheck, and I start checking all my outputs, putting all the body packs. Okay, this is correct. This is correct. This is correct. It's all showing up in the right place, and I'm done. Like, without having to run pink noise left, right, left, right, left, right. You know, I can tell right away whether they're on or not, and then if they're correct or not, you know.
So do you ever work with the artists in virtual soundcheck? Like have them come in after rehearsal and sit down and let's work out some of these tones for you?
But I try to do it also where if it's a singer, maybe for certain parts, But
Yeah.
the truth is, the best way of having the singer try it is on stage, including the
Sure.
PA,
Yeah.
because otherwise it won't be accurate. It'll be too clean next to me or whatever. But I have had him do other stuff like that, at least to get the ballpark thing. Or a lot of times I do it with band members. The guitar player will come over with me. Hey, can we run this part real quick? And we'll run it.
Uh-huh.
How's this? Perfect. Store it, and it's done. But with Enrique, funny enough, I chuckle with this because I sing a lot of the stuff. Like I'm not a singer. Let me clear that up. But I sing it with the band live as I'm sound checking with him, because it's the most accurate way of really knowing what he's hearing, right?
Yep.
We have the same in-ears. I'm on his pack. It allows me to check for wireless stability. And we have a stage that is behind front of house, so that adds a lot of latency or delay. So I do all that with the band. Literally, the band is playing, front of house is full blast with my friend Brad Divins, if he's watching eventually. And we check all of these things, right? It's like, okay, let's see what it sounds like with the PA on, in front of the PA on the runway, or behind front of house on that stage that we have, with his mic, and I'll sing the songs. I'll sing the duet with the girl singer with us, and it's the most accurate thing. And to be honest, it works.
Yeah.
With Gwen, I do it, but her range obviously is different than mine, so I don't really sing her stuff, or maybe I'll sing one line just to see, whatever. But it helps. That's the best way, because a lot of times we, as monitor engineers, we're stage left, and we're like, okay, this is it sounds really thin to me. His or her vocal sounds really thin to me. Well, for the person singing, it doesn't, because of the whole occlusion that we all know about. And for them, it sounds actually muddier than for us. So the best way for me to really know is to actually test it in real time, and if possible, with the PA on. But as far as like dialing certain things in, yeah, sometimes it definitely helps to have the artist there or the musician there go, hey, can you try this on my stuff? Like, sure. Or I had drummers come in and like, what do you have on my snare? My snare sounds cool. And they'll come in and I'll be playing it back, and they'll see what I have, and they go, and they have their producers or engineers themselves. They go, hey, do you mind just maybe adding a little bit of this, or maybe take some of this out? I was like, sure. Or if they want me to take something out that I really feel sounds good within the mix, because it's not just their mixes. I have to make those sounds work for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then what I'll do is I'll split the snare and get it dialed to the way he likes it, the way he wants to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the snare that goes just to him, right? And then the other one goes to everybody,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So yeah, it's anything to keep him happy, because if the band and the artist, if they're happy, they're gonna perform better. If they perform better, everybody's happy.
Yeah,
right?
I'll start with you, man. You get it right for them, they'll be happy.
That's the way it goes, it's like, and it's just, and it goes without saying that I'm able to do all of this not just by myself. Also, yes, I'm the one mixing and making these decisions, but we always have a team around us, right? We have someone taking care of my RF, or I have a monitor tech who's taking care of a lot of things and getting my gear ready and set up the way we like it, or I like it, right? So it's not just me. I'm the one just running the board, but yeah, it's a team of people that's making it all happen,
For sure.
That's awesome.
So Eddie, you've worked with a number of great singers over the years, and I guess my question would be, how do you make sure and stay focused on them, make sure that they're hearing what they need night after night? Yet you obviously have some big bands as well to deal with. How do you keep them happy as well? From night after night.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, because what happens a lot of times is we could tend, because it's happened to all of us at some point, where just to focus on the singer and like, oh, sorry, now I can't really take care of you. Like, I personally don't like to do it that way. I like to make sure that everybody's taken care of, even if the quote unquote boss is the one singing. If the drummer's having issues, I can't ignore him. Like, because what if his in-ears are falling out or breaking or cutting out or whatever it is? I have to attend to that, otherwise they won't be able to play. And when they can't play, then, like we said before, everything collapses, right? So I pay the same attention. I do have, sometimes some requests from that I make to band members if it's a situation where it's a singer with their band. Um, I usually tell them, look, let's try to get anything that you might need out of the way during sound check. And then once she's here or he's here, I have to focus on them because, I already took care of you guys. And of course, if you need to, because we have obviously a full talkback system, like when Enrique, most person have like 3 talkbacks, one that goes to everybody, one that goes to the band only, and one that goes to just the crew. So the guitar player can lean over and just say, hey, my guitar's cutting out, or my patch hasn't changed or whatever. And only we hear it. Or they can go to the band and say, hey, are we doing this other song? What are we doing? Without the artist listening to, right? Or if they want everybody to listen, then they go to all. But that communication is important, whether I ask them to be respectful of that time. But the truth is, no matter what's going on, I'm always making sure everybody's happy. Like if I'm watching my artists and they're doing their thing and everything's fine, I'm always scoping the rest of the band, and just making sure, if I see someone like struggling with something, a keyboard player like and I'll on the talkback, I'll check in with them. Hey, so and so, are you good over there? Is everything okay? And they might be like, no, my right ear's cutting out. Okay. And I have a backup set that we can send them. Like, I'm always watching everybody as much as I can, of course, but,
Sure.
But I'm always trying to keep an eye on everybody and pay attention to everybody. And if anybody says something on the talkback, I don't ignore them. I just go, okay. But if I'm doing like a bunch of cues for the artists at that point that are not programmed, that are actually live, then it might take me a quick second to get there, but I'll get there. So if someone says, oh, I like to hear more guitar on this song, and that's something that just so happened, or maybe guitar player changed the patch and stored it the wrong way, a little lower, and none of us realized it until that moment. I'll as soon as I can, I go to that, boom, raise it up for them, and it's done. And they know I'm taking care of them, and they know it's going to happen, whether it takes me a quick second or not. So I think that's important to not ignore them, and to always make sure that you're paying attention, not just to the artist, but every band member, or even production. We have mixes that go to stage managers, production managers, pyro. If the pyro person can't hear the mix, or their mix is cutting out, that could become a dangerous thing too, because they might trigger something on the wrong spot. So I take care of everybody, and I treat it as like it's all important. It's all part of the show. I have to pay attention to everybody, no matter what.
That's great, man. So you'd mentioned that you had kind of moved from Profile over to SXL. Was that an immediate transition? Did it take you a little bit of time? And really, what kind of made you decide to make that jump over to SXL?
Oh, I was patiently waiting for it to come out, and kept asking for, is any board coming out? Is anything on the works back then? It's like I literally had, other companies, of course, that were available at the time, sending me boards at the house saying, you should try this. And there was nothing on the works coming out I was like, oh man, but I wish they were sending the boards, and I still didn't connect with them. There's always been something of the way your software is on Venue that I've connected since day one, since the Profile came out, or since the actual Venue came out, that it just makes sense in my brain. It just, the way it works it's very easy to understand, and there was no other format will convince me otherwise. So once it came out, it was a very easy transition for me. Literally, my files will basically open. My Profile files will basically get converted, and now I'm on an SXL. I felt right away that the preamp sounded better also, and the workflow to me is better. I like the surface. So as far as how easy it was very easy for me to transition. And one of the things that I continue to like about it is, and we spoke about this before briefly, is automation. and how easy it is to program, right? Also, because I do studio work and the integration with Pro Tools with just, an Ethernet cable, it's like, you can't go wrong with that, And as you do your snapshots, it's hitting markers on Pro Tools. Then after we do a show, after we do a TV thing or whatever, all of a sudden I get asked, hey, can you mix this song? And I just open it up in my studio or in the hotel. I know where the song is. I don't have to find it by a waveform or whatever. Boom, there it is. All that integration and all the features that it has, how I'm able to program, function keys or macros or whatever they want to call them. It's amazing. It definitely makes me worry less about that part because everything's all there. Anything that I program, like talkback switches or any kind of function like a reverb burst or whatever, it's easy to program and have access to it right there in front of me, and it just works. It's simple and it works, even if you don't have time to program a show, you can go ahead and just basically plug in and go and start mixing. Yeah. You don't have to be a coder or an IT guy to get it up and running, it just works, So there are many reasons why I like it, as you can tell. I really like the console. So yeah, I mean, I'll, time and time again, we're always trying to learn and grow and learn new things and different things, but I always revert back to the SXL because it has everything that I need for what I do for my artists. It's easy, it's stable, and just all the automation features that it has to me are priceless.
I'm going to touch on advice in a second, Eddie, but just before that, I had a little question for myself. So my background is more audio, and I just love live performances. So this is something that I would love to ask. But advice to someone who's a Pro Tools user, and they want to get a bit, how is a relationship when you're in the studio, when you're using Pro Tools, similar to when you're using an SXL? Like, do you see the similarities there as well? And what advice would you give to someone who's beginning of their career, no idea what to do?
Yeah. Well, the first question, as far as the similarities, I think the similarities in the sense now that because of the way the technology is, and also not just with in-ears, right? With in-ears, we can get away with a lot of things. Like if I want to add a little bit of air on the vocal, no problem. Like 16K, just crank it. Not a big deal because we're not using wedges, right? Yeah. But and same with front of house. We have the PAs now are so great, and they could be directional, and they could be built and design it in any way you want, and the way they cover and the way they eliminate sound blowing back onto the stage. So you can get away with a lot of different things when it comes to sound of how we will do it in the studio versus how we do it live. You can do a hybrid of that. You can excite the room with more studio-like mixes. And lately, for the last 10 years or so, you see more of that, or I should say, you hear more of that in front of house, where mixes sound more like a studio, and they're actually being done live. Like they're putting plugins that they use in the studio when they made the record or when they mixed the record, and you can get that experience now. The audience can get that experience. I try to give that experience as well in in-ears, and we're able to do that because obviously we're in in-ears, but because I'm able to prep here in the studio, create some presets with some plugins, try them out. It works. I would say 90% of the time. Every now and then you might find something like, this probably didn't translate, but let me try this other one. Oh, then there you go. Then it works, right? So it's totally doable. I feel like your creativity is up to you at that point. You create your own limit of how far you want to take it. I'm definitely not a set it and forget it type of person, so I'm always trying to find new things, new ways of making it better for the artists and also and for the band members, and give everybody a better experience. So yeah, that's where it becomes very helpful to do that connection between the studio and the live scenario now, which we're able to do. Before it was a little harder, right? And then your second question, what advice I would give someone who's starting out? I will say just be a sponge. I know it's cliche to say it, but it's true. Like,
Yeah.
even I mean, I've been doing this for 30 years plus, more than 30 years. Jesus, I'm old. Way more than 30 years. And the one thing that still happens today, and I'll probably go at it again after we're done with this, is learning, right? You're always learning, I know, I consider, for instance, that I know the board really well. I'm not even certified, but I've learned it, right, to a point where I know it very well, and people even hire me to go consult with them and get it set up for them, right? But I'm pretty sure there's a lot of things I don't know. So, I will hit one of you guys up and say, hey, I'm kind of stuck doing this, and how do you get this part done, right? Or it might be a feature that I've been wanting forever, and maybe I didn't realize it's already been implemented, and I'm still thinking it's not there, maybe, and I have a workaround, perhaps. I don't know. My point is, you always got to ask and feel okay with asking, and be a sponge with people around you who know what they're doing. You don't have to take it all in, but at least grab what you feel is useful to you, and then you can discard the rest if you don't want to use it. But always be a sponge. You're going to learn something from anybody, whether they have 30, 40 years of experience or they have 5 years of experience, because they might just have a different approach because of that, because they only have 5 years doing this. They might think of it different. They might rationalize it differently. So I feel like we're constantly learning, and there's always room to grow and room to be better at what we do by just asking. If we don't know something, just ask. So I guess to sum it up, my advice for anybody starting out is just ask. If you don't know something, just ask and keep learning. And don't be afraid to try new things. In school, they might teach you like, oh, well, this is how you EQ a kick drum. Well, there's so many variables to that, Who's the drummer? What kind of kick drum? What kind of heads? Is it padded inside? Is it not padded? Are you in a tiny room? Are you in an arena? Like, we can go on and on. So what they're teaching is just a reference of what one approach could be. At the end of the day, you have to make your own. You have to also deal with what's in front of you, right? So definitely take everything you were taught, but also use your instincts to deal with the situation at hand at that moment, right? So, yeah.
No, thank you, Ed. That was amazing advice, and I totally agree with you, because I did the same thing at university. I used to just copy everything and be like, "Why is my sound sounding so different to what I heard on YouTube or with my teacher?" And it's so right.
Yeah.
But no, Eddie, look, thank you so much. This has been awesome. I've learned a lot myself, really, just having this conversation with you. You're great. So this is just amazing to be here. Thank you for being here, and Chan, I don't know if you want to say any closing words as well. But
and just thanks for sharing, Eddie. It's been great to talk to you. It's great to spend a little bit more time with you. A lot of insightful stuff here. I'm really glad we did this, and I look forward to doing many more.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I always appreciate these kind of things where we get to share a little bit, but more than anything, I appreciate you guys and Avid for your support, your unconditional support always with me throughout my career and with my artists. I've always been able to count on you guys for everything that I ever needed, and I really appreciate that. And hopefully, we'll continue to do so.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Eddie. Thank you, Chad, so much, and everyone out there. Thank you so much, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thank you.
Bye.